Hi everyone, welcome back to a new episode of Love All. I feel like both Blair and I are in the thick of it. We're in the busy schedule of work, parenthood, everything, trying to keep the house together, me, the hotel room, and so we're getting this show podcast episode in a little earlier than usual.
Yes, we are. So really what Kim is saying is that we take no responsibility for what comes out of our mouth.
Being delirious.
This could be a more unhinged episode than usual, which is saying something. I feel like last week was pretty unhinged, but hopefully in a good way. We like a little analysis with our unhingement. I'm going to go ahead and say that's a word for today. But no, it's so good to see you, Kim. I feel like you have had an exciting last 24 hours.
It's been very exciting. I feel like my last 10 days have been full of emotions. It was all basketball. We were in Stockholm, in Sweden, by the way, one of my favorite cities I've ever visited.
Really?
Like, I don't know if you've ever been, but
no,
it is gorgeous.
Love to go.
Yes, gorgeous. Like with the family, the boys love, like it's very adventurous as well, because everything you do basically is by boat. You can go to the different islands, but you still have the main island of Stockholm, you have that big city kind of feel, and you have everything there, but then all the other islands, like it's so fun to hop around on and to go visit. And so we really, really enjoyed it. Brian and I did a sauna every day, jumped in the lake. Like it was just probably what I needed more than the boys, like, to be more in nature. But again, to come back to the basketball, because that's what we were there for. They ended up being fifth out of 16 in the European Championships, and which means that so in the last game, that was yesterday, they had to beat Poland to try to make it through to the finals of the World Cup for next year. So we're off to China, Chengdu in 2027.
That'll be so fun. But so Kim, we've obviously talked a lot about Jada's basketball this summer because you guys have been having your Euro summer, and that's kind of the reason why. But I don't think I've asked you what you feel like you're like as a basketball parent.
I always say, like, because basketball is a sport where you can cheer, like it's brought out a new kind of excitement in me, where back in the day when Brian was playing, like it was very vocal, and I'm a very positive vocalist, like supporter. Like you have parents that can be frustrated and yell and curse and do all that, but I'm very, I think, positive and cheer for all the girls and for Belgium, and but I do definitely get into it because I feel like they can't hear me anyway, so I just can get all my emotions out. But
it's Are you nervous?
I am, and I am. I'm very superstitious. It's the weirdest thing. Like I go into my own kind of habits from back in the day, like my routine, and like Brian's like, oh, here we go. She's locked in. When we wake up in the morning, like it gets very, like.
Wait,
I have to do
Kim,
the same
you're
thing.
Not going to be able to use a blanket superstition. What are you talking about? Are you like getting eggs from the same farmer's market or something?
No, it was like
the routine.
In the hotel, we had a routine where the kids and like the boys and Brian and I, we used to do our every morning we did like stretching and movement, and then we did a sauna. We had to jump in the lake. Like we had to stick to the kind of same routine. I would eat the same thing for breakfast, and it was just kind of a mindset, like to be locked in, to not be loose, and like just like go with the flow. Like it was, I had to make sure all the laundry was done, and just everything had to be in order, and that reminded me so much of back in the day when I was playing. Like I feel like I used to fold my clothes in my room whenever I was at a hotel room. If my bag was a little messed up, or the closet that I kept or the dresser that I kept my clothes in, if it was a little bit messed up, like I would sit down, take all the clothes out, fold it really neatly, put it back. Like it was like a weird obsessed. Yeah. But I'm so not like that. I'm so not like that in real life. Like I can be totally fine with a messy like hotel room. But then when I get locked in, I'm like, okay, everything has to be like, straight, and in my tennis bag, everything had to be super organized. And so
we are actually, because of our various travel schedules, I am leaving for Cincinnati today. We're recording on a Sunday, so we're going to be a little less results-based today, a little more topical with our discussions. But of course, we're going to talk about Sinner, Sabalenka. We're going to talk about serves returns and some controversial takes on those fronts. Plus, we're going to talk about the relationship between tennis players and the media, as we teased last week. And of course, we're going to get to Kim's favorite Cincinnati memories. Should she remember the year that she won? We'll find out at the end of the pod.
If you give me some time, I'll remember.
Well, Kim, there has been absolute carnage in Montreal on the men's side. Several withdrawals, injuries, retirements, and upsets, leading to the first time ever that a Masters 1000 has no top 6 players in the round of 32. That said, I am not bothered by this. I love a surprise winner. You've still got Artur Fils, who I could watch play tennis all day long, Rafa Hodar, who I keep thinking is going to hit a wall. It has not happened yet. Ben Shelton, who's the defending champion there, Jakub Menšík, who I think sort of has the that level of personality where you're not quite sure if there's personality there. He's got a lot of personality, and I love the chance. I love that we're getting the chance to sort of dig that up as he does better and better in these various tournaments that he's playing in. So I think there are still some really exciting names left. So that does not bother me as much, but it's the reality of life on tour, these longer events. What goes through your mind when you see that they're dropping like flies?
Well, to me, I think it's also the, getting towards the later stages of the season. Some players have taken a break, like we've seen, some of the vacation pictures after Wimbledon. And, I think when you get out of the routine of playing and practicing, I think sometimes for some players, it's maybe a little harder to get back into it.
They all went on vacation and they're paying the price.
That's it. There you go. Just go old school and keep working don't stop, keep it going. And I think it's I think that sometimes is a little bit that mindset shift of making the adjustments and kind of pushing yourself through, especially towards the later stages, or well, we're in August, but getting towards the last Grand Slam of the year. And it's tiring, and it's a lot for a lot of players. And the one player prefers to likes playing on hard courts, the other one doesn't. So it's you just have to kind of push through and rely on your discipline and when things aren't going the way that you want it to go. So, but I do think that has a little bit to do with it.
And of course, looking ahead to Cincinnati, where I will be very soon, the big news is that not only is Carlos Alcaraz out, but Jannik Sinner is also out. We're hoping this is a precautionary measure, an issue with his right knee. And that it's on one hand a blow. On the other hand, you think the rest of the draw is probably thinking there are some pretty incredible possibilities. So I'm excited to see how things unfold in Cincy.
Oh, I'm very excited to see that. I think there's some players who are going to be like, oh yes, like this is really believe like I'm going to go for this. I'm going to lock in because I believe that I'm good enough to beat everybody else except for maybe those two on a good day. And that's the Zverev. I do think a guy like Artur Fils, Ben Shelton, like those kind of guys, like I think will be some of the favorites now to go out there and so. But then you'll have some names too who are like, okay, let's lock in and see if I can get a good paycheck here and get some points and take an opportunity. So it's very interesting to see. Like I don't mind it either. Like I'm excited to see what will happen in Canada now, what will happen in Cincinnati. So it's it creates a different dynamic in the tournament, but it will give some other players time to shine and to really use the opportunity.
Yeah, we certainly hope to see Sinner and Alcaraz at the U.S. Open. Oh, I don't know. We don't want to speculate on that. We certainly hope that both for tennis and for those two players. But what I was wondering, I think back to Wimbledon and how really depressed, I don't think that's overstating it, Alex de Minaur sounded in his press conference after losing, I'm forgetting which round he lost in, but he knew that there was an opportunity. He knows that if he's going to win one of these big ones, he's probably going to have to do it in a tournament where he's not going to have to beat Alcaraz and Sinner. So how do you prevent yourself as a player from white knuckling a little bit?
Yeah, I mean it's the mindset. I feel like with de Minaur, the type of tennis that he plays, like he has to work very hard to win like most of his matches. And to me, where he's felt like he probably knows that I can play anybody. And when it comes down to fitness, I'm better and stronger than anybody. But sometimes, tennis wise, he's just a little bit below the guys like Sinner and Alcaraz. And because I do think he believes he can beat Alcaraz, he can beat Zverev, he can beat Ben Shelton. Like he can make it really, really tough on those guys. He's come up short a few times. And so I think he's also one of the guys that's going to look at this and be like, okay, let me just really focus on this because maybe this is my chance. And maybe if they don't show up in New York, maybe this is going to be, one of my biggest opportunities. But then again, you don't want to jump ahead, right? You also want to stay locked in because you can lose, first round just as well against a good player that's playing very well on the day, and you might be surprised. So it's that fine line between being balanced and having the confidence to know that you can beat anybody, but still grounded enough to realize that you could also lose to a lot of the players. So I think that balance is sometimes a little, tough for a lot of players to find.
I'm thinking.
I remember
back.
Blair at the U.S. Open. No, I when I think back, I think it was 2004 or 2003 U.S. Open where I had to play Justine in the final, knowing what I know now, like, and as I got older, like I knew that I was going to lose before I'd even had like stepped foot on the court. And I was hoping so badly that I was going to play Jennifer Capriati in the final. I had won my semifinal. I played the day match and Justine was playing Capriati in the evening. Mm-hmm. And so I'm watching it on TV and, I think Capriati had a lot of chances. I think it was a 3-setter, very physical. And I was hoping because I had already lost 2 Grand Slam finals to Justine prior to that, to that U.S. Open, and I was just hoping that I was not going to play Justine because I just didn't believe that I could beat her. And then she ends up winning, and I was like, shoot, here we go, got to get another tough one in against Justine. But again, I lost, and just very frustrating that I wasn't able to play my best tennis just because mentally I just didn't believe that I could beat her.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, we were also talking about this offline, where you have some players who have a little bit of, maybe I would call it healthy delusion. Like I think back to last year in Cincinnati where Terrence Atman, I don't know what he was ranked at the time. He wasn't on anyone's radar, came through qualies, I believe, reached the semifinals. And I have talked to him since, and he had no doubt that he was going to back that up. He did not see that as a fluke. He saw that as something he was always capable of. And finally, it came together. So I always think it's so interesting where you talk to some players and they do have this in the back of their mind where they're thinking, yeah, I don't actually think I'm going to be the one holding the trophy at the end. And then you have some players who fully do think that on any given day, they should beat the person on the other side of the net. And I really think there's such a spectrum, and it just depends on the player, on what works for them.
It reminds me of the boys in school when we had exams and there were guys that were done like after 15 minutes and would like bring their papers up and they're like, great, I'm going to have 90% for sure. Like this was great. And they end up having like 40 or so, like really bad. So I think that's part of it as well. And what I, thinking about Rafa's documentary too, just seeing the mindset that he had, right? Where he thought he could lose every match that he was going to play.
Yes.
And so I think I was a little bit more like that. Like I would see my opponents in their previous match or in a warm-up and I was like, oh my God, like that's going to be really, really hard. Like I have to lock in, like I got to be ready. And then I would beat them and, pretty straightforward 2-setter. So I think it's that mindset. It's whatever kind of, works for you, I guess. And I do think when you feel like you get a little bit overconfident and you lose a match that you think you were going to win, like you have to learn your lessons from it and maybe kind of just change the mindset a little bit and not jump too far ahead to conclusions. That was also part of my superstitiousness is like, I never like to talk about like, but if we win this round, we get to maybe play that, that player. And especially in the media back in the day, that's what they used to love asking was like, oh, when we look at the draw and the potential quarterfinal or semifinal against Justine or against Aryna. And that's what I hated probably the most was to just assume that, I was going to get that far.
let's talk a little bit about Aryna Sabalenka, who lost in the round of 16 in Toronto. Another 3-setter, falling this time to Ekaterina Alexandrova. And that's a player who's given her trouble in the past. Her record against her is now 5-5. But since the start of the clay season, Aryna has not looked quite like herself. And this is coming off the Sunshine Double, in which I'm like, she might run the table on the rest of the year. I guess maybe my first question is, what do you see when you watch her tennis? What do you think the issue is?
Well, I think what I always feel with Sabalenka is even when she's not playing her best, I feel like it can take one shot, one rally that can switch it around really quickly. But for the last few weeks, like I think she's been, I don't know, not playing with enough maybe structure in her game. I think that's what I'm lacking a little bit. I think it's a lot of powerful hitting and trying to hit the ball harder if things aren't going her way, or take even more risks. And and I think, I think Serena used to say it a lot, right? Like when she was number one and winning all the Grand Slams and everything, like players playing you never have anything to lose. So they play so freely and they serve better than before. They all of a sudden they're returning really well. And again, like I think Sabalenka, the players that she's lost to since Miami, like they're all good players. Like it's not that she's losing, to, players that are ranked outside of the top 100 or things like that. Like they're all players who are, very good in their own, how do you say that? Right?
Yeah.
So, but I do think at the moment she's lost a little bit of her, the structure in her play. Mm-hmm. I think so.
Can you get that from playing patterns? So, I mean, I think all players sort of have their go-to patterns, but also you can't go out there, I would think, with you can't be too programmed. You have to leave space for instinct and reacting to what the opponent does. But can that help?
It can definitely help, even if it's just to give you a little bit of confidence in practice, right? It's just to hit, a few really good clean shots and like hitting a winner in the open court. Like it just gives you a little bit of that, positive mindset out on the practice court. Again, that doesn't mean, that you're going to automatically be able to transfer that from the practice court to the match court. One of the things too, I think we talked about it earlier, was her first serve percentage was very, very low. First serve percentage one. I think it was like 31 or 33% against Alexandrova.
Mm-hmm.
So very, very, very low for Sabalenka, whose first serve is one of her biggest weapons. And so there's definitely something, off a little bit there. And maybe players are starting to read her serve a little bit better, or found some kind of way to make her doubt. And I also think that when she's not feeling confident in the rally, I think it goes through to all her shots, right? Like I think it takes a little bit away from the return. It takes the confidence in the return, the confidence in the serve. And is she worried? I don't know. Because I think she still has a really, really good chance of winning the US Open, and I think that's where she's trying to peak. And so I don't know her at all, like her team or anything. Maybe this is just like, let's get enough matches in, let's play a few matches, and I really just want to peak at the US Open and play my best there. And maybe that's the mindset that she's in too. So we'll see. But just very interesting to keep our eye on her for the next few weeks.
When you had the number one ranking, did you think about it at all? Because Sabalenka is in danger of losing the number one ranking to Elena Rybakina, who doesn't seem to be interested in taking the number one ranking.
No.
She is still alive as we speak in Toronto, but I was curious to ask you about that. Did you think about that at all, keeping it or losing it or any of that?
Not to keep or lose it. I just wanted to make that not like be worthy of that number one spot. And just, like fight hard and push through and try to win my matches. I basically, because you're the favorite in every match you play at that time. And I think to me it was more that, like, I just wanted to make sure that I, was good enough, that I wasn't like, oh, this number one player lost. And you see that a lot too. Like, I think it was more like that. Probably should have been a little bit more confident with that number behind me.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I would say that I am, in my line of work, also sort of doomsday, where I feel like every day I have to justify my position and what I do. And this could be the day that something ridiculous happens in a post-match interview and it goes viral and I never work again.
Yeah, exactly.
Should I be thinking that way? Probably not. But those are the thoughts going through my mind.
I can't imagine that not everybody has a little bit of that in them. Maybe not all the time, maybe not as much as us. But yeah, I do think you need to have a little bit of that, like to stay, focused
stay sharp,
and hungry.
yeah.
And yes, like you have to have that a little bit.
All right. Thank you for justifying.
You're doing great, Blair.
Thanks, Kim. I needed that today. All right. Well, moving on. I happened to see some tweets on this topic, which made me head over to Renee Stubbs' podcast to see what she had to say. She was talking about how serve weakness, in her mind, can sort of rule a player out for chances at a major. And she specifically talked about Eala and Jess Pegula. She mentioned specifically Jessie's second serve and how she really thinks that it would be hard for those two players to overcome that particular, I don't want to call it a weakness in their game, because it might just mean that it is slightly less strong than the rest of their games. But you had some thoughts on this topic.
I do. I mean, I do think they have a chance. Like, I do think they have winning a Grand Slam is hard no matter what. Like, whether you have a great first serve or a great second serve, like it's. But I do think Eala and Jessie, like, they have such strong weapons when it comes to the return game that because of it, they can break an opponent's service down just by being so good and aggressive on the return. So I do think, look at, what we just saw against with Sabalenka and Alexandrova, like, when those players have bad service games too and service days. And if you have Sabalenka playing, first serve percentage or winning 33%, of course, Eala and Pegula can win a slam if that happens in the final. And I can guarantee you, like, I've experienced it, you need to have a little bit of luck to win a slam. Like, you're not going to be the best player to win the tournament all the time. Like, I've, played slams where I could have lost earlier in the tournament. That happens so often. So you need a little bit of luck, to win a Grand Slam. And so I definitely think somebody like an Eala, because of the mindset, Jessie too, like, she's so strong mentally, the way that they're able to move side to side, the ground strokes that they have. I think, I definitely think they can win. And I think maybe Eala not as much yet as a Pegula, but I think Jessie believes that she can win a Grand Slam. And I think that's where it starts most of all. Like, you have to be able to believe that you can beat every player out there. Whether you haven't done it in a Grand Slam yet, but you've done it in the smaller tournaments, like to beat the top players, to beat a Rybakina, to beat a Sabalenka, that's super important, because every match that you play is different. And I definitely think that Jess and Eala, maybe not yet, but I do think that, Jessie especially believes that she can win a slam.
Kim, I learned a Filipino slang term this week in preparation for this segment, and I'm just going to go ahead and guess that you do not know what said Filipino slang term is.
No clue.
Apparently, Alex Eala's fans call her serve a fukelia serve. And it's, again, a slang term, I may be pronouncing it wrong, to sort of represent the fact that it is unconventional looking, but gets the job done, which I think is great, because it reminded me, actually, and I would use this exactly to describe Alex Eala's serve, but my dad, when he's, teaching 3.0 league ladies, and they shank a winner, he'd be like, ugly but effective.
Exactly.
And it just is, and that's not to say that Alex Eala's serve is ugly by any means, but just the fact that it doesn't have to look like Serena Williams' serve to be effective. And we talked about the lefty factor for Alex as well.
Yes, and I can name a few players from kind of my generation back in the day that did not have great serves, and there's service speed was very, very slow, but the ball toss was horrible at times, but they made it work. Elena Dementieva, Miskina at times. Who else had that slice?
Ivanovic.
Anna Ivanovic at time. The ball toss was out of control, but it makes it hard to read and it gives you no rhythm. Dementieva, the slice was at times so hard. You just have to try to get the ball back into the court, and so sometimes playing a Serena or a great server like an Osaka or those players, sometimes that becomes a little bit easier because 9 out of 10 what you're going to get. You just have to pick the side basically, and but it's definitely tricky, and I like that. The Fukilia, is that what?
I actually consulted a Filipino friend's mother on this, and she said you would say it Fukelia.
Fukelia, so okay.
I did do some research. Apparently, it's very close to another Filipino slang term, which is less clean, shall we say? So,
all right.
I
hope I said it the right way.
Yes. All right. Let's move on, Kim, to a little talk about the return. And this is also sort of an Alex Eala topic as well, or an Eala inspired topic, because I think back to, I think it was her first round match in Canada, where she's playing Alicia Parks and half volleying returns. I mean, Parks has one of the best serves on tour. And it made me curious because you also, we were sort of comparing and contrasting some of the different return styles on tour. And I wanted to know how much of a good return is anticipation, how much of it is reading the ball toss, how much of it is knowing your opponent's tendencies, or just seeing the ball off their strings. What are the different factors that go into a good return?
Well, to me, I think it starts with the mindset of being aggressive, right? I think with Eala, and I think I had to learn over time, is to play each shot and finish that shot and then move on and thinking about the next one. I think if I just think back to how I was in certain times during my career, or where I got a little bit nervous, or if I wasn't confident, I would retrieve. I would start close to the baseline, but as my opponent would throw up the ball toss, I would kind of take 1 or 2 steps back, which automatically means that your upper body is kind of leaning backwards a little bit. And then it wasn't I just couldn't hit an aggressive return. Then it was basically, let me try not to miss this return and just get it into the court. When I made the switch of cutting the corners and staying really low and moving into the court after my opponent, threw the toss up and kind of either staying in my position or taking a little split step forward, that's when I felt like I was my most aggressive and I played, my best returns. So to me, it all starts in between the ears. And I think Eala, to me, what stood out the most was, yes, she has great anticipation against Osaka last week, how well she read the serve. Both first serves, Osaka has a really good second serve as well, where she can get a lot of topspin on it. She can hit the body slice serve, but she was reading her serve really well. So I think it's a combination of being aggressive, making sure that the chest is moving forward, right, into the court. And then also, the belief and the anticipation is just so important. And I think she's reading that a lot more. And then I think I sent you the video of Sakari as well, where Sakari's kind of very, she's a player, right, who keeps her chest very upwards and straight up and plays tennis like that, right? Most of the time leans even a little bit more backwards than leaning forward. So, I think it would feel really strange for a Sakari if you're going to ask her, hey, can you move, lean into the ball a little bit more? Whereas I do think it would help her game and her next shot. I just think it would feel so unnatural for her to try and adjust that and make that change now.
Did you also see the set that Marta Kostyuk played against Iga Swiatek? Kostyuk ended up losing the match, but in the first set, she won 16 of 17 points on Iga's serve.
Yeah.
Which I do think so much of it is also the mental piece, right? Is once you establish the fact that you are not afraid to maybe start a step inside the baseline, that all of a sudden the server is maybe getting a little squeezy on the other side of the net.
Yeah, and also everything is a lot easier at the start of the match, right? You don't have the score influence. You don't have to, oh, I'm one set away of beating Iga, to go through the next round. And it's, everything is a lot easier when the scoreboard is not involved. And so, Iga also is somebody who we've seen lose the first set quite often and then still, become, end up winning the match. But she's very, very locked in, Iga. And I think she has, especially in that match against Kostyuk, was able to bring more variety into her serve and just kind of create a little bit more, variation so that Marta wasn't just reading the serve well and on top of it. And because it's very frustrating and it puts a lot of pressure on your serve when your opponent is returning really well. And so that was a great effort from Iga to kind of break that routine and that rhythm from Kostyuk. So because a lot of players would not have been able to change kind of that momentum around. And so great effort by her.
How often did you practice returns where someone was just serving to you out of a basket? Every
day, every practice. Yeah, that was part of the structure that I had built into practice. It was, and there was a variety of stands where my coaches from when I was younger would stand, right? They would have the basket on top of the service line and serve at me and serve hard so that I had to read the serve. And in the beginning, it was I knew they were going down the tee. I knew they were going out wide. And then it would be, open, like they were free to choose. And so that became, very, very important. Every day from probably when I was, 10 years old, like the return was just another shot, like the serve and the volleys and the ground strokes, everything.
I think it's underrated oftentimes in terms of junior development. I think it's underrated because I think it's easy, even for the juniors, to think, well, it's just a ground stroke. But there's so many more pieces to the puzzle than just hitting your forehand or hitting your backhand. And so learning to just build that into every practice, I think, is huge for juniors coming up.
Especially also because all the stats that we see in the last few years, right? The first two shots, especially in women's tennis, more than a few years ago than when I was playing, but the serve and the return have gotten so important. And so the return is key. A few weeks ago, I was in Belgium with Jada. She was practicing in Antwerp, and I had a meeting upstairs in the cafeteria, and it's at where the Belgium Federation is, so where the Flemish, where the players that are part of the federation, where they train. And I saw one of the young up-and-coming players. She was practicing like a return exercise, or like a return drill, and like it was like getting on my nerves, like putting cones out is so important for placement, for like awareness for the brain, right? To say like, oh, this serve is, a little bit more to the middle. Let me try to get a little bit more out wide and like learn to make adjustments yourself. And like, I'm so surprised, like when I saw it, like a couple of the coaches, like not using the cones in drills or on the return where it's so specific, right? Where you return, how important that is. Like, I feel like from when they're 10, 11 years old, like, there needs to be cone, there needs to be targets out there so that they can learn to adjust their arm. And it's not that they have to hit the targets, but it's just this how you are taught. In tennis, that's how you make your adjustments and how you learn to feel when you're a little bit off, when you're a little bit, when you're hitting it right. Cones I've always found, or targets I've always found very, very important.
Get your cones, people. It is fun. Yes.
And competitive.
There is nothing more satisfying than I used to go out and practice serves with like half-filled water bottles.
Oh, and them exploding?
Nothing more satisfying than exploding a water bottle out on a court, like by yourself. I used to practice at a public park by our house, and I would always kind of look around and be like, and any pedestrians happen to see that? That was pretty good.
I've won a lot of smoothies. I've won a couple of Nobu dinners, like going cross-court rallies. It was like, okay, at the end of this practice, whoever wins has to buy like sushi tonight at Nobu or whatever. So it started with smoothies, and then we kind of, had to like start putting more and more on the line. But it just to keep it fun and competitive, and it makes you kind of just be locked in, like maybe a little bit more than if it was just like, okay, let's do this for 10 minutes and that for 10 minutes. And so, yeah.
I mean, dude, if I thought I was going to have to pay for dinner at Nobu, I would be in the zone.
Yes, exactly.
Well, as advertised, Kim, we are going to talk a little bit about your feelings on the media during your career. Obviously, I'm in the media space now, and I'm getting ready to leave for Cincinnati, where I'm going to be working for Sky Sports UK. So I'm doing a mixture of media day stuff, so sort of the car wash where players come in and out, and then I'll also be doing some reporting. So I'm excited for that. Excited
Great.
to sort of get back in the groove. And I feel like, you know, sometimes I would call myself media, sometimes I would call myself more PR, depending on what my role is on a given week. But when you had to, let's put yourself in the position of like going into Cincinnati. So it's a couple weeks before the US Open, and you have to answer a lot of the same questions. What was your mindset going into media day? Let's start there.
I feel like I had different stages in my career. You know, when I was young, like teenager, it was all very new, and you know, throughout my career, I've always, or most of the time, have done, you know, answering or at least getting the questions in 3 different languages: English, Dutch, and French. If I kind of wanted to get it done very quickly, then I wouldn't respond in French. I was like, no, sorry, can't get to find my words. Just do it in English and get it over and done with. But yeah, that there's been different stages when it comes to media. And I think, you know, to me, the human side of it too is like you get to know some of the people, especially if they're, you know, from your country, and there's some that you like more than others, and there's some that you trust more than others. And that's definitely a big part of it. And I had to learn that. It's not that.
Did you get burned early on where you maybe said something and it wasn't, and then it ended up in a headline and you were thinking, that's not at all how I meant that?
Oh, yeah. I feel like that happened all the time back in the day, especially, you know, when Justine and I started doing well. Like, I feel like we were in the paper every day, right? Like, and no matter what we did. Like, I remember one very specific, I think I was flying back from Germany. I played tournament in Leipzig or something, and a couple of the Belgian media members were on the same flight. And immediately I'm like a little bit guarded, but then I also don't want to be rude, like they're people. And so I'm talking to them. I'm like, hi. And then the next day it's like exclusive interview. So they basically used what I had said, you know, on the plane. Oh. And like those kind of things make you just be like, okay, dude, like, well, I'm not going to give you anything. Like, if that's how you're going to be. But I feel like in general, like I've always been very open with the media about my feelings, about how I felt when I decided to retire the first time. Like, to me, it felt not right, not telling the media when I had made it up, like ready in my mind. Like, I was clear that that was going to be my last year. So I think I've always been very open. To some people, it maybe, you know, sound like being too open, but I guess it's just how I am.
Yeah, which I think is a great piece of who you are. And that, I think, is the tough thing, is that you have some players who maybe might start off that way. And I've seen this throughout the course of some players' careers, is often when they come on tour, there is sort of this openness and honesty that maybe isn't still there a few years later, because whether they are exhausted by the process of it, because it is hard. Like, that is one of the things that I maybe don't love as much about the media day process and how it works, is that oftentimes, you know, and also it's why I try to think really hard about how I ask my questions and what my questions are, because they have likely been asked. There are certain things that I will have to ask. Like, for instance, if Carlos Alcaraz decided to play Cincinnati, I would have to ask
about his injury.
How's the wrist? Yes, exactly. But he has answered that question for every other person he has come to before me. And so it is, I think there has to be an understanding on the player's end. And most of them get it, that these are different rights holders, oftentimes in different countries. And even though you're saying the exact same thing, you're saying it to a different audience. And so, but that takes it out of you by the end of the day, trying to look engaging and interested in a question you've answered 8,000 times. And I think that is also exacerbated too, Kim, and I'm sure you came across this, where at these various tour stops, you're also getting some local media who don't cover tennis year round. And they have no idea that there is a storyline that started years ago that is, there are so many things to keep track of in tennis. And these poor journalists who are just trying to do their jobs but have no idea what they're walking into. And then, the players from the podium are like, what the heck, man? That question doesn't even make sense. But you still have to be pleasant.
Yes, and that's one of the biggest things that you that you notice is you have media who've been in the sport, who've been around the sport for a long time, who understand what it's like. So I can imagine if I would get a question from you, that you would know how to ask a proper tennis question or like if you saw something during the game, like where you're like, oh yeah, that's a good question. Like, and it makes the player think a little bit further as well. Whereas if it's the common, like, all right, what happened in the second set where you were breakpoint, like the common things after a while become boring. And, yeah, it's and players also have their bad days, right? Like sometimes we don't want to talk to people and we just want to stay in the hotel room and don't even want to talk to our coaches, and then you have to show up and talk to the media, and so it's not always easy, but at the same time, I think we also have and it's different with social media now, but back in the day, like it was also our role to represent our sport well, and to the more was out in the media about tennis, no matter where we were in the world, like it was important because we were presenting something bigger than just Kim, the tennis player, and it was the sport in general. So I think from a very young age, like I think I understood that because I went during the juniors tournament at the US Open, I went and listened to one of Billie Jean King's speeches to the juniors, and it was in the big media room at the tennis, and and she talked about that and how always to represent the sport and the work that they put in. And so I left that room being so inspired and motivated of kind of, not being Billie Jean King, but doing the best that I can do to take pictures with the fans, to try to give all the autographs and to be positive to the media, even at times, you don't want to talk to them. And let me tell you, there have been a few people from Belgium. And there's one guy, his name was Dirk Herlo. He was mostly radio that I did with him. I mean, I be in tears laughing, like could not start.
I didn't know which way that was going, actually.
Yes, no. It was good. Like it was always fun because he was always the last one when everything was done. Like radio was like kind of like the last thing. So I was probably a little delirious and tired from talking. And then, he was the last one. But it was, it was always fun to kind of have somebody well and you can kind of let loose a little bit more. So a lot of giggles when I couldn't do some of the interviews because I was laughing too much. So that's you have those too.
That's how I feel with on Shabur.
Oh yeah,
where oftentimes I've had to like collect myself before we.
Yes, I tried to do that with him a few times. And then we have like Philippe de Wolf in Belgium, who's a former Grand Slam semi-finalist who I love the way that he writes, and he asks questions where you're like, actually you made me think about this. Like I, can look deeper into like what did I do there, or like it's nice to have those kind of questions. And so there's a few people that you get to know along the way and that you like
more than others.
Yes, for sure.
That's so interesting. And I like the Billie Jean King part of that, because when you think back to what she was doing at the very beginning, even maybe prior to when the WTA had actually formed, I mean, she was finishing matches at 9-10 p.m. and waking up at 6 a.m. to do radio interviews that were live at the time. And so to think about maybe even how much better she could have been if she also did not have a full-time job promoting women's tennis, right. It really puts things in perspective. And I think it has been easy, especially because women's tennis has been so successful for so long, for some players to maybe get a little bit complacent as far as that is concerned. But I think that if the last few years have proven anything, I think we have to sort of stay vigilant, because you gotta people have to know who they're cheering for. And so I that is often, I think, maybe one of my frustrations, where if I have a player who is giving me very little, I want to sort of, nicely shake them and say, this can actually help you too.
Yeah, give me more.
Like I help
People
me
will
help
get
you.
Yes.
Yeah, and I get, like, it would not be the most fun to have to go in and answer the same questions day after day. But if somebody decided to ask me an outside of the box question, well, then I would want to give them something for actually putting thought into something that might not have been the same thing that I was being asked over and over.
No, but I do think a lot of players are extra guarded because maybe in their home country, media can, react very different than the kind of the international tennis media that we're used to a lot of the times as well. So, it's not always easy because, different cultures, different personalities. So, I do think some players are definitely a little bit more guarded when it comes to giving out private, not private information, but sharing some, personal stories or, but it is what it is. Especially, like, I think now with social media too, like a lot of people try to keep the big news for their own stories and definitely different times compared to when I was on tour.
One more question on this topic. Did you ever feel like you had to think about things in a press conference that you would have preferred to not think about? Because that, when I think back to Naomi Osaka and deciding that she wanted to be able, and now there are allowances in place if somebody wants to skip a press conference that don't necessarily include a fine, depending on the scenario.
Oh, okay.
So yes, there are allowances in place now that weren't prior to Naomi sort of voicing her concerns about that whole thing. But the root of that was that when she was going into press, people were giving her stats about how rough clay season had been for her and grass season. And there were things that she maybe didn't want to have to think about that she was having to process in those press conferences. Did you have experiences like that?
Yeah, I'm sure I have. For the longest time, like every press conference was about me being worthy of being number one, even though I hadn't won a Grand Slam. You try to just leave it in the media room, but it does start to creep into your head a little bit, and you just try to keep focusing on staying positive and trying to work yourself to the next opportunity where you can, maybe get to the semis or a final of a Grand Slam and trying something different. But yeah, you get reminded of that almost in every press conference, and it kind of, you just have to, you don't want negative stuff around you. And a lot of times media is negative, or they'll point out the negative. And as a player, you try to obviously be aware of the negative, but let go of it and learn from it and not be reminded of it as much. So, so that's definitely something that's frustrating, and it can be. I remember leaving the media room at times, like with like a stomach being like, ugh, like that was horrible. Like I hated that. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's because you're talking and you want to give them a little bit of an explanation and your feelings about it, but your thought process goes back to the negative stuff, and at times you don't want it to go there. So it's not because you want to avoid it, but you've experienced it and you just want to leave it behind and move along with it. So
did you ever skip a presser and get a fine?
No, never skipped it. What did happen once in a while was, like, if we finished really late and we had to come back the next day, that someone like from the media representative from the WTA would come into the gym, whether if I was running on the treadmill or biking, and would come out with like whatever 6 questions from the media, and so that they had something to write before their deadline was there. But I don't think I ever skipped. Because I didn't want to talk to the media. No, I never did that. It's not their fault that I lose.
This was so interesting, Kim. I feel like there's probably more. I am sure, again, just sort of given the nature of what I do and your incredible life experience, I feel like we'll probably revisit this in one form or another down the road. But I loved hearing your perspective.
Thanks.
That was great. Well, shall we go back down memory lane? Cincinnati, you were the champion in 2010. We did talk a little bit about, I think, your final last week, but I guess just maybe tell me what your memories are now that I'm assuming this morning you have unearthed them. I had to maybe do a little digging.
Well, sometimes, when you go to these tournaments for, a few years, like you kind of, or at least for me, I'm sure that there are players who know exactly what happened which year. And, but I sometimes get my years kind of mixed up, and I get, was that match in 2009 or in 2010? And so going to 2010, I beat Sharapova in the final, was match points down. Like we talked about it last week. There was this very, very important for me rain delay that helped me and saved me from losing. Yeah, I think the year before in Cincinnati, I lost. That was when I came back after I had Jada in 2009. I lost to Safina in the quarters, and then in 2010, I played her in the first round. I played Safina, and I was able to beat her in 2 sets. So, yeah, very important for me. Kind of, it was my build up to trying to defend my title at the U.S. Open, and I feel like I was very, very locked in. I enjoyed playing in Cincinnati. Some family members from the American side of the family came to visit, and we kind of. It's not that there's a lot of things to do around. I feel like besides the amusement park,
Applebee's.
I
the
did
Applebee's
not.
that everyone apparently went to.
No.
Okay,
no.
missed out on that, Kim.
No.
Yes. Did you go to Kings Island and ride roller coasters?
Yes, I did that.
Are you a roller coaster person?
Not anymore. I used to be. Not anymore. I don't know what happened to me, but I am nauseous for the rest of the day if I go on a ride now. I can't even do like a what do you call that? Like a in the pool, like not a flip.
Like
I'm not flipping. In the pool, like where you do like a somersault or
sure.
Like in the pool, I can't do it. I'm so dizzy. So I don't know.
All right, I won't take you to Kings Island anytime soon. I do love though how in
I'll
Cincinnati.
hold the bags, Blair.
Thank you. Which we always will need that.
Yeah.
But where you see the Cincinnati Stadium court, and then behind it, you can actually see the tops of the roller coasters. And I feel like it's such a metaphor for the tennis season, where you're just hanging on for dear life. There are highs and there are lows. Yes, exactly. Or yes, any individual match. I think it's so funny to sort of see that in the background. But last Cincy question, because you won, that means you also won the famous Rookwood Cup, which has been redesigned, if you will. It's now sort of blue and brown. It used to be sort of the colors that you would imagine on sort of your grandmother's tapestry. It had a lot of personality though, but it was a pottery vase from a famous pottery place called Rookwood Pottery in Cincinnati. And they give you a little mini version. Did you ever put flowers in that? Do you know where that trophy is today?
I know where it is. I've always had it in Belgium. I had like a cabinet in my basement that was also it was a nice basement. Like it was like finished. It had my gym. It had my husband's music, like stuff there. And now it's in Vermont. So it's going to, once the barn is finished there, it's going to have, my trophies are going to have a nice place. And I'll take a picture and I'll put some flowers in it for you.
It would be perfect with flowers in it. Not every trophy can say that. So shout out to Cincinnati and their personality-filled Rookwood Cup trophy. I never forget going to the Rookwood Pottery factory with Grigor Dimitrov in like 2017. And when I tell you, I mean, Grigor is such a gem, but he was so into this pottery making, the pottery painting.
Was it like Ghost, the movie?
It was not for me.
Oh, shoot.
It might have been for Grigor, who's to say?
Yes,
but he was all in, as he often is on any sort of media thing. He just was fully invested in the pottery experience. So great memories from the Rookwood factory in Cincinnati. Okay, Kim, do you have a recommendation for us this week?
I have no rec. I have
no rec?
Nothing. No.
Okay, no, that's okay.
In the same hotel room, and I feel like nothing has really come up for me that I feel worthy of being used in our
that's fair.
Recommendation section.
I have a couple, so I will make up for your lack of recommendations this week. Okay, first of all, I don't know if you can see my necklace. I don't know how well you can see it, but they're multicolored stones, which is, kind of random, but also fun and whimsical in my opinion. It might not be some people's cup of tea, but the jewelry company that I work with called Melinda Maria, I think I've done another jewelry recommendation along the line, but they have they're just the cutest little tennis necklaces, but they have the multicolored stones, which I think is really fun
Very
and whimsical
pretty.
for summer. So highly recommend.
Let me ask you a question. Did you wear jewelry like when you were playing, or do you keep this on when you're playing?
I had basic jewelry back in the day, just like maybe a chain necklace and maybe a ring on my left hand, but that was pretty much it. That and like stud earrings like this. Did you?
The same. I tried to, like, once in a while. I had a necklace that was a little bit too long. It had like a charm on it, hit my tooth when like that happens a lot.
When I see Sasha out there, Zverev with those, I'm like, dude, that's a dental disaster waiting to happen. Okay. But yes, to answer your question, I actually have a link of my jewelry that I should put in my Instagram profile. So I will do that if anybody is interested. And also, Kim, you've heard this before, but my t-shirt side hustle, my merchandise tennis merch side hustle is coming to, that makes it sound very small time. It's actually not, but it's coming to Cincinnati. It was supposed to be in Indian Wells. We were a little behind schedule, but it's coming to Cincinnati. So if you guys remember the order of play shirts, so there's a shirt every day with the order of play on the top courts for that day. It is coming to, I think they call it the Cincy shop, or maybe the Cincy Open shop. So it's actually in their merchandise shop. We'll have a little section where you can get a shirt with the order of play on, I think, the top 6 courts for that day. And when they sell out, they sell out. There are also totes and hats. So if you're going to be in Cincinnati this coming week, starting on the first day of main draw, you too can get a match day shirt. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and the people have to bring a Sharpie, because how cool is it if you have one of those shirts and you can get the winner of some of the matches to sign the that T-shirt. Like, it's
that's a really good. I hadn't even thought of that. Kim, you're hired.
I think kids would like I mean, adults too, but for kids too, that would be so fun to be able to collect the shirts and get some of the winners of the day to sign the shirts.
There you go. It's like a walking program. It's like people used to get their program signed. You just get your shirt signed. So shout out to Badge of Honor, the amazing company who has taught me a lot about merch. Not something I thought I'd be learning about over the course of the last year and a half, but here we are and excited to be in Cincy. Right. So that is it for my recommendations. Anything else, Kim, before we sign off?
No, I'm flying to the States tomorrow, back home after looked at the calendar, exactly 2 months. I've been away, so I'll be very happy to be able to sleep in my own bed tomorrow, cook in my own kitchen, take the dog for walks, and do all that. And then we have the induction, the International Tennis Hall of Fame, the induction of Roger Federer.
Are you for sure going to be there?
I'm going to be there. Are you?
Yes, I am, Kim.
All right.
I'm very excited. I have my outfits picked out. I'm sure you do too.
I don't even know what I'm going to wear on the plane tomorrow. So let me.
No, I only have mine picked out because I have to, because I'm literally home for 48 hours before I go to New York for 3 weeks. But that was a joke. I figured you may not have crossed that bridge yet.
I first have to unpack about 8 suitcases.
Okay. Well, you've got time.
Yes.
But Kim, a joy and a pleasure as always to talk to you and to interact with all of you. If you guys who are listening have questions about Cincinnati while I'm there, or about Kim's experience, or anything sort of in this really exciting time on the tennis calendar, drop them in the comments. Comment on Instagram at LoveAllPodcast on all the platforms. We'd love it if you reviewed, subscribed, liked, all the things. And we will see you next week.
Have a great time, Blair.